Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 2 of Salesforce Simplified. I'm your host, Andy Whiteside. I've got Derek Cassis with me. Derek, how's it going?
Going well, going well. Good day.
Tell the truth. How's it going?
Yeah, it's good. It's going good. You work from home. You got to deal with a couple hurdles here and there, and so we'll do the best we can. Got an old dog, and she ended up getting into some stuff. So it's all good.
Our podcast was delayed because Derek had a moment, and all's good. Dog's fine, cleaned up enough to get through the podcast.
Yes.
All right, it's real life. Oh, I know what I was supposed to mention. Here's what I meant to mention. I want to start all the podcasts we do with the tagline "Context Matters." And we'll end with context matters, because that's we do these podcasts because we want people to see value in us as a partner, in this case with Salesforce. If you're working with a partner and you're not getting the value out of Salesforce, either because of the partner or because of Salesforce, or somebody's not bringing it all together, that's what we want to do. That's one of the reasons why we do this podcast. We use blogs. We got one from Salesforce Ben today that we're going to go over around Data Cloud, and I'll hit that here in a second. But we use blogs, but then we add our context around it and our thoughts and our topics, because reading this in a vacuum by yourself is one thing. Us talking through it and you hearing us have a conversation around it is, we believe, super valuable. So tagline, context matters. That's why we do these podcasts. Derek, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree, 100%. I mean, we need to be able to paint this in a picture where it makes sense, and we need to articulate that, especially with the topics that we're covering in various podcasts.
And that's one of the reasons why, in general, I mean, you have your bonus episodes, but in general, we do it, two people do it together, so you can have a discussion and people can listen, and it makes it extremely valuable when you do it that way, we believe, at least. All right. The blog from the day is from Salesforce Ben. I've never seen this before. I heard you mention it, but I've never seen it.
Yeah.
And I think the title of the blog is "The History and Future of Salesforce Data Cloud." Before we jump into Ben, I guess, his blog around
Well,
this
it
topic.
was written by, see right next to it, Lucy. She's the one that wrote it.
Okay. Well, tell us about the site first, and then let's talk about the fact Lucy wrote this, and let's jump in and talk about it.
Yeah, well, so most of the Salesforce community is probably well familiar with Salesforce. Ben, it's website. He's a consultant. Got a website, tons of information, blog articles, and it's an area. If you do some Google searching, more than likely it's going to be one of the top results when you search for particular content or topics around Salesforce products, topics, etc. And the drip is, I guess, I was just kind of searching around and found this. The drip is kind of a piece of the Salesforce Ben company, right? Mm-hmm. So Lucy, it says here, is the founder of the drip, and she's the head of operations at Salesforce Ben, and she wrote this blog, and it's recent. Well, it's recent enough, right? August 22nd of 2023. Sure.
And can you pronounce Lucy's last name just to give her credit for what we're getting to review here?
I hope I say it right, but Mazelon.
Mazelon, that's probably right.
Yeah.
So Derek, I think you and I were at Dreamforce. I think that's part of what spurred this conversation, all the talk at Dreamforce. But why this blog? Why today? Why this blog from August 22nd?
Yeah. So one of the things that was a center of topic at Dreamforce was Data Cloud. It was a huge topic. They announced that Enterprise Edition and up were getting Data Cloud for free. 10,000 records credit basically is how they're doing it. And so I kind of wanted to dig into that, because having come from Salesforce, I had kind of come across different products that did something similar, and I wanted to just make sure that my thought process and assumptions around what Data Cloud is were accurate. And so this basically answers the questions that I had.
So coming out of Dreamforce, someone to talk about Data Cloud and some people getting it for free. And you and I were like, well, what does that mean? And what, what's the limits on that? I think you've covered that, but do it again if you haven't. And then the opening paragraph or two here kind of talks about some things that as to why this matters as well.
Yeah. I mean, we could dig into the beginning part of the history of here, but essentially data, and Data Cloud is, from a historical perspective, and I found this interesting, but it's the fastest growing Salesforce built product. And that whole like Salesforce built product is interesting. Like it wasn't an acquisition. We all know that, there's a lot of pieces of the Salesforce portfolio that are acquired. Slack, right, is one of the bigger ones. Tableau, other pieces of that inside the platform are potentially pieces of acquisitions that are then folded into the platform. However, this was built kind of from the ground up over the past several years. And, I didn't know that. I thought that was kind of interesting that, that was one of the uniquenesses about this. And what's also mentioned in here is that they did a survey and found that, an average company has about 928 systems. And a system may be just a different platform, something, right? Which means that larger companies probably have thousands, smaller companies probably have hundreds. And it's creating, in today's day and age, kind of an issue with siloed data.
Mm-hmm. So it's no longer app integration, it's platform integrations, and something's got to be the thing that brings the data together.
Correct, right. And what's really driving this is AI, to be honest with you. And, it's, Chat GPT bursting on the scene, everybody talking about generative AI and all this good stuff. The foundation of AI is the data, and having a good foundation of the data will allow AI to execute at full potential. And that's, kind of a theme here and what's trying to be accomplished as far as, taking separate systems and unifying them.
Is this a matter of giving something like your AI engine access to all these different data sets, or bringing all the data sets into one place where the AI or the engine or whatever the application is has a better chance of doing it quick and well?
It's that they call it harmonizing the data, so that if you think about it, if we've got, I'm just going to make it easy, if we have 5 different systems and your customer is represented in those 5 different systems, potentially have a lot of duplicate information and data. You may have different customer IDs, and if something happens within one system, does the other one know about it? And can you see all of that in one place? So that's where, data, the concept of it is to bring all of this together, unify the customer, unify whatever it is, like whatever object or entity, whether it be a customer, a patient in healthcare, but put that into the context so that each system can be aware of the other systems, and you can then surface all of this stuff in one place.
Yeah. So Derek, is the intro, and then now there's the history of Data Cloud, which I think you've kind of covered with the history of all the different products that
popped
up.
Let me dive into this real quick, because I think this was an area of confusion for me. And so it's kind of interesting, right? The history of Data Cloud. And we're going to go back real quick to 2020. 2020, there was a product, Customer 360 Audiences, which was the initial CDP, which stands for Customer Data Platform. And so that was the initial kind of foray into this type of a product. It was then renamed a year later to Salesforce CDP. Okay, same product, different name. We all know that happens all the time. But it aligned with the market and CDP products that were out there as far as terminology goes. So you notice how now CDP is in the name of the product. The next phase, a year later, it was renamed to Marketing Cloud Customer Data Platform. That's because essentially the Marketing Cloud division and product suite was being renamed, and there was some standardization going there. But you can tell that at this point, this solution was really geared towards marketers, right? It was geared towards the marketing folks that had to do a lot of, deduping and kind of unifying of customers in different sets of, maybe leads and all that good stuff. It was mostly in the marketing side, right? Then, at Dreamforce in 2022, Salesforce announced a product called Salesforce Genie, if anybody remembers. And Salesforce Genie was the renaming of the Marketing Cloud Customer Data Platform but it's not necessarily just the name. This is what's so interesting, is that the name, as these names change, you can kind of follow the shift of how this technology is being used. And so now it's being named such that it's a much broader use case, right? So you no longer have marketing the name. It's Salesforce Genie to signifying that shift in use cases and sales and service across the entire platform, right? And in this year, 2023, Genie, the name, was dropped. The mascot obviously stayed the same, but that's when it became Data Cloud. And that's kind of the evolution of that product, which, as this article points out, was a pretty important investment from a Salesforce perspective, but also because it's powering the generative AI innovations that were very prevalent at Dreamforce 2023.
Yeah. I like it. I'm sitting here thinking about the name going, I like the name Data Cloud for AI and more, or something,
Yeah.
just
Well,
because you and I, we walked around, we thought of Data Cloud all at Dreamforce, and I got it, but it just didn't pop right out to me that this was, the enabler for AI. And then the minute you started talking about it a minute ago, I was like, well, of course, that's what this is.
yeah. Yep. So that, I mean, and that right there was kind of the answered one of my big questions, right? So not to confuse that, these are all separate products, but this is an evolution of a product that has, evolved over time and is now a pretty important piece to this larger puzzle that we're solving when it comes to leveraging data for business, data-driven businesses, AI, et cetera.
Mm-hmm. So going back to our commercial about, hey, are you working with a partner that's really trying to educate you and get you up to speed? I don't know if you watch college football, pro football on YouTube TV these days, but every time I turn it on, I'm always, an hour late or whatever I am, always late. And it says, would you like to watch the key plays to figure out how we got here? I'm like, well, heck yeah, boom.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we do as a partner. That's why we do this podcast too, so that we can try to bring some of that stuff to the surface. Because sometimes just understanding where it came from and what the naming things, the history of the names, it just makes it all make sense.
Yeah. Yeah. And it just clears it up because, it's hard with the renaming and who knows, right? It may change again, but it's important to understand right now that when we talk about Salesforce Data Cloud, right, that's the evolution of that product. That was kind of center stage at Dreamforce this year.
Derek, it may change, it will change.
Exactly.
And that's okay. They're doing what they have to get the technology in front of the people with the right name.
Yep.
It's just how it works. How it works. We all can't be Coca-Cola forever. And by the way, they even tried to change the name at some point. All right. Anything else around the history of Data Cloud you want to cover?
No, I think that was basically the really important piece from my perspective, was just following that. Yep. Yeah. And I will say, actually, yeah, there is one more thing, is that one of the last sentences in this section was, Salesforce has built a general purpose data lake. And I find that to be an important sentence, because that's what, you can think of this as, is a data lake, right? You can think of it as data flowing in from from various third-party systems, but it's tightly integrated with your CRM.
Yeah. So Derek, the next section says how data harmonization was achieved in the past. Just like with everything else, knowing the history of this is super valuable to figure out where we're going next. So how do we cover that?
Yeah. So I like to look at this section very similar to how you might explain how AI used to be done like 10 years ago, right? And data scientists, they would spend a lot of time, and very few people had access to that type of technology. And if you were to list how to do it, it would, you'd have a lot of steps and it would be very difficult. Thus, a lot of people didn't use it. So what this is talking about is how data harmonization was achieved in the past. And it's, there's a lot of steps here. Acquire a data cloud warehouse, build what they call a star schema. They go through, taking an enterprise service bus that you can drill into and learn more about. That's basically, the communication channels, right? ETL jobs. Basically what this is showing is that it was hard to do this, right? To perform data harmonization was not a trivial task. And to contrast that with what you're able to do now with Data Cloud, it's clicking, it's declarative, meaning it's clicks with the mouse to map your data points between Salesforce and other systems. right? And so you're saving like massive amount of time to connect these systems. And like they give an example, Google Cloud, SAP, a payment system, whatever it is you have, right? You can connect those in a visual way with the harmonization piece of Data Cloud and how you actually do that.
Yeah. Derek, to me, that sounds like a see it to believe it kind of thing, which is easily demonstratable these days. I had a moment the other day where I forget Rocket Money or something is some app they advertise all the time, and I saw the commercial where it actually just added all your streaming services into one place and hit a button that says "Show me where I'm spending too much money." When I saw that bring that data together, that app that brought data together, it's pulling it from all these different places versus putting it all in one place like this is. But just magical what that means to me from a consumer perspective.
Yeah. And I think that and what Salesforce has done is pretty smart in that, if you've got enterprise edition or higher, you can go and provision your own data cloud. Oh, how do I do that? Okay, go to your account, go into your products, and you'll notice that there's a data cloud there for $0. You click, add it to the cart, check out. You have to, fill a couple things out, and in a couple hours or whatnot, you'll have access to data cloud. And that is the whole point, right? Now the barrier to entry to this type of technology is, it is completely simplified.
Yeah. You don't have to hire a whole team to do this or set up a whole project, massive project. It's within reach.
But yeah, and what I will say though is that while it's that easy, it doesn't remove the fact that you really should understand why you're doing it, right? Understand where you are in the Salesforce journey, where how mature is your environment. Do you have a lot of systems that you want to put together? Because one thing you don't want to do is just set this up and kind of learn as you go in your live environment. And that's kind of where partners like us come in, where we can actually sit down and do that mapping. I think that's really important for folks to understand.
Yeah. Just because it's a click away doesn't mean you should just do it without some pre-work.
Correct.
And a get out of jail plan too, by the way.
Yes, absolutely.
Well, what do we call that? I'm drawing a blank here, but our fallback method.
Fail safe.
Fail safe, yeah.
Yeah, and then they show, and those for those that are listening can't see this, but it's a capability map, and I'm a big fan of capability maps because it shows, it'll either show that you're holistic across a lot of different use cases or tactical across one use case. And what this is showing is that this solution is very holistic across, a lot of different use cases: storage, big data engine, data transformation, etc. So it's very, it's a pretty strategic, piece of the platform.
Now, is that mapping exercise and visual we're seeing on the screen here, is that part of the product or is that something you do in parallel?
Well, this is just so capability mapping is something that a lot of the Salesforce technical architects will do with customers. Mm-hmm. And what they're showing here is they're just articulating where this plays. So, for example, where you see the product circle icons, that means that certain products and the key is up at top, where the products play, right? Showing that they've got solutions across all of these pieces is what it is. Awesome. So this is a part of the product. It's a visual guide to help you understand where these products fall.
Well, and that's another opportunity to do a brief commercial here. We are following Salesforce's consulting services methodology. So if you're working with us, you're going to get this type of capability mapping as part of your engagement.
Yeah. Capability mapping is a really useful tool that I don't think is used enough, but yeah, that's basically what that was showing.
All right. So the next section talks about Salesforce Data Cloud differentiators. You want to cover that?
Yeah. So, and I think I mentioned this, but it's pre-wired to the Salesforce objects, meaning that, the standard objects are available right there, so that you don't have to bring that whole schema in. Essentially, what it looks like is, you'll have, for example, you may have. Instead of account ID, it may be, AID or ACT ID or some other field name coming from a third-party system. And you can basically connect that to the appropriate field on the CRM side so that it understands that it's the same account, it's the same person. And it's all pre-wired, right? And that's the whole point of it's easy and you don't have to do all the schemas for everything. And that's the other interesting thing here for industries is, I come from a background in health and life sciences where I was with Salesforce, so you got Health Cloud and the Health Cloud data model. The industry, it's supporting a handful of these already, the industry data models, right? So that, that goes into the concept of, all right, if you're bringing things in from a third party solution and you've got a patient, well, now you can start, matching that stuff up as well. And then, I'm going to skip down to the trust layer. This was something that was announced at Dreamforce as well, the Einstein trust layer. And this is where we get into, okay, this is all great. We've got this AI, we've got, generative, but how do we protect this? And so the Einstein trust layer is, how Salesforce is addressing that, where you're able to mask particular information so it doesn't get thrown into large language models. You're able to mask that data so that you understand what is and is not being used for particular AI features.
Oh, that's awesome and necessary, very necessary.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. Anything else in this section, Derek?
I think that's it. I mean, I didn't get to too much. Prompt engineering is another bullet there, but that's probably a topic for another day. I mean, prompt is really all around, how you interact with these AI models. Prompt engineering is another whole section. And so I will just say that, Prompt Studio is something that was announced at Dreamforce, which is going to allow admins to create user prompts, right? So, and what that means is like, what are you asking for? And that's them interacting with these generative AI solutions. That's kind of a TBD. That's not out yet, I don't believe, but that's going to be baked in as well to the data cloud. And the other thing that's not really mentioned here, but I know you can do this, is you can trigger in data cloud on data events. So if it notices a change in data, I can trigger a flow within Salesforce to do something. And that, anybody that knows flow, you can start thinking about all the things you could possibly do when data changes automatically.
Yeah. And not only that, but yes, generative AI, great. You still have it in most cases, in many cases, at least for a little while, or maybe forever, that human interaction and how to get it going in the right direction so that you can then take the output and do whatever the human needs to do with it.
Yep.
All right, next section talks about the future of data cloud. Just kind of tell us what they're covering here and then jump into these individual call outs if you want.
Yeah, so like we've said, it's been 2 years, it's been since 2020 with different releases and updates and names. And that Salesforce does releases 3 times a year. One that just went out recently in October, winter 24, or winter 24, winter 23. I'm getting my years mixed up. But so essentially what this is calling out is, where is this going, right? What can we expect? I mentioned the prompt suite. So Einstein GPT is something that, we need to keep an eye on because, just as well as I do, Andy, when we were at Dreamforce, there was a whole lot of generative AI capabilities that are being baked into this product. So, Einstein GPT is something that I think most people are going to want to look into as far as how it can enable their sales, their sales force, their sales reps and whatnot that are leveraging the CRM. Like I mentioned, Data Cloud for Industries. So I think that's going to continue to mature to cover more industries as time goes on. And then it calls out closing the skill gap, which I thought was interesting. And this is all about, okay, this is great, but we're starting to get into some new areas. I mean, I even heard at Dreamforce like a new job role, prompt engineering has been born. That's pretty interesting, right? And so this is just talking about the skills that are required to manage and maintain the things that we've talked about, developer skills, for implementing and updating events that are coming into the data cloud, data management skills, analyst skills. And this again, is where I think, partners like ourselves and the partner ecosystem can really help customers. So from a skill gap perspective, this is where, getting us involved or talking with somebody early in this, in the process of this, so that you understand where you are, where you want to be, where you're going, to call these skill gaps out early is important.
Right. And to the point where it's potentially a full-time role on the prompt engineer side. Like you caught my attention big time when you started talking about a prompt engineer role. Like what would that person do?
Yeah, so it's really about how you're interacting with the AI, and I'll be honest, I mean that's a whole area that I'm not. I mean, it's new, right? So I'm not as familiar with prompt engineering myself yet. So it's exciting, and I think that's anybody that works in this type of field and whatnot, we all know that what we did 10 years ago is not necessarily used today. What's new today is new. So you gotta catch up. But from a perspective of like prompting, I mean that is how you interact. My understanding is how we're going to interact with these AI models and generative AI models. For example, instead of pulling up ChatGPT and saying, you know, write me a message, right? It's going to write something really random and generic. But if I said, I really would like a message written about Salesforce Data Cloud so that I can understand it and explain it to a 7-year-old, right? Now I've given it a lot of information, right? And that's kind of a prompt for the AI model. And so the more information you feed into these, the more accurate and actionable the response from these tools are going to be.
And that's the human skill, but somebody needs to help teach, educate, transition, translate.
Yes.
The human's lack of knowing what to put in versus the tool's ability to produce it. All right. Anything else on this section around the future data cloud?
I think that's it for that. I mean, I think we covered most of that area just to understand, again, the Einstein GPT stuff, the data cloud for industries, the gaps was really what that section's talking about.
Okay, so it goes to this point now. Sorry for all the trying to get the words out. Summary, like what does this mean after reading this blog? Where is this going? What should happen next?
Yeah, so and they mentioned in this article that data cloud could be described as the Holy Grail of CRM. It's a pretty bold statement, in that the data problem that's been there for a long time is solvable. And so the data problem being that we've got data silos, and right hand doesn't know what the left hand is doing, and or you're managing different environments with duplicate data. You don't have a true end-to-end vision of your customers, right? That is where we're at right now. And I suggest everybody, at least get educated enough so that you understand, what data cloud could potentially do for your business, how you could leverage it. Obviously there's, you could reach out to us. You could go out and take, Trailhead. There's a lot of resources out there to, kind of get your foot in the water on this. But this is going to be a foundational piece of what they're calling the Einstein 1 platform, which, as we progress and we start adding all these capabilities to the Salesforce platform, the Einstein 1 platform, data cloud is going to be right at the center.
Yeah. Well, you brought up several times in our conversations, that crypto and blockchain was all the rage a couple of years ago. So whether AI comes and goes, without a doubt, what Salesforce is doing here around getting data in a centralized, manageable, usable location, that is a guaranteed thing that has to continue to evolve.
Absolutely, right? I mean, if you want to compete with what the expectations are from a perspective of customers and where we're at today, you've got to be able to know and all touch points, You need to be able to know that. And the only way to do that is to be able to combine all the touch points from various systems, unless you're using one system, which, as I mentioned, nobody's using one system, right?
Yeah.
900 plus, 1,000 plus. I mean, there's multiple systems. So that's where we're at. And that's not going to change, but harmonizing this so that you can actually leverage the data, embrace the AI to a point where it's actually, enabling your business is where we're at with this. And it's exciting. I think this is a really interesting piece and a really interesting addition to an already impressive suite of tools that Salesforce has.
They're in an interesting spot. They have all this customer and user data. And, like you said, companies that have tried to use one platform know that they can't. A lot of companies have just given up on the idea, and they got the sprawl going on. And that may happen by business unit, may happen by department, may happen by both. The centralized data lake concept that's there and ready to be consumed by things like AI and other Salesforce related products and third parties. Like, okay, I didn't ask that. Once you have data cloud, what stops other platforms or products from using this data cloud? Nothing really, right?
No. But so the data cloud is integrated into if you look at an architectural diagram of the Salesforce platform, Einstein 1 platform, it's in the middle, it's in the center part. So it's essentially provisioned into your Salesforce org, and it is the traffic cop out to the third-party products. The third-party product isn't going to be able to pull, like that schema in a third-party product doesn't know about Data Cloud. Data Cloud knows about it.
Right.
That makes sense, right? And there's other solutions out there, like we mentioned, that do this, right? There's manual solutions out there. You can do your own data lake. So this isn't the end all be all, but from a perspective of Salesforce, if you've got the CRM, I mean, this is a no brainer to many, right? And the exciting thing too is that, we, XenTegra, we are going to go down this path as well, right? So as time goes on, we'll probably have future podcasts to update kind of where we're at on that journey that we talked about. So
yeah, we didn't say that in the commercial, but with almost all products that we consult around, we use them, and we are a working example of what to do, in some cases what not to do, but things that can be shared with customers who are in the same boat.
Yep.
And on that note, we've got our own nonprofit. We've got to move from Success Cloud to Nonprofit Cloud at some point. You mentioned that Data Cloud might be the key element to be determined, right?
Yeah, TBD on that. Doing a little bit of research on, where we're at with Nonprofit Cloud and whatnot. So there's still a couple things to iron out on that. I know Nonprofit Cloud is fairly new, but from my perspective, the data cloud is important in almost all aspects of what you're doing. I mean, unless you really unless you have everything in Salesforce and that's it.
Yeah.
Right. Then you don't have the need to harmonize data from other areas. And then this is a solution that needs to be looked at.
Well, but like in this case, if you had everything in Salesforce, which there may be some nonprofits that got on board early and put everything there, but they now have to move to Nonprofit Cloud, they still have the problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's a topic for another session for us to dig into. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where, because we all know, right, in the beginning stages of some of these things, the use cases are what you think they are. And then what happens is people start using it, and all of a sudden you realize people are using it in different ways. So it's going to be really interesting to see what those different ways are. And I think one of those different ways could be assisting in what you just said, right? Assisting in some of the nonprofit areas.
How about this? The only thing consistent is change.
Yes.
And the only reality around that is the data that was part of the pre, before the pre is still relevant if you know how to put it in somewhere you can use it and how to leverage it.
Yep, exactly.
That data is always valuable if you have it where you need it. It's like I just moved. I got a ton of stuff in a storage unit right now. I start to think about what I need. I don't have the storage unit organized to the point where I can find stuff, so I might as well not even have it at this point.
Yeah, you can't get to it. You don't know where it is. It's not organized, right? So it would take you forever to get the stuff you need. That's the same thing with the separate systems, right?
Yeah. But I will change. I will add this to it, and maybe this is where I'm at 50 years old, gotten smarter. It's a single storage unit. It's a big storage unit. I left space to walk through the storage unit, and instead of putting things in brown boxes, they're in clear plastic storage containers.
Right. So what that shows is that you know that you need a better system.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You know that you need a better system to help you find the stuff, but you're still having to go and find the stuff.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go organize it again at some point soon, and put things by buckets, but I'll be able to see into the containers versus trying to read the marker, writing on the side of it, which probably wasn't right anyway.
But then what happens though when somebody else walks in there and doesn't understand the way that you organized it, right? Do they understand what's what and what's where? That's the interesting part of that too, right? Is that the goal is to harmonize and get data to a point where it's just usable and consumable from the folks that want to use it. I mean, quite frankly, it shouldn't matter how that's done for somebody that's using it. Just like, in your example, that system works great for you, but if I walked in there, I may not know what's what.
Yeah, it's part of the process.
Yep.
Well, Derek, appreciate you doing this on a Friday afternoon. We wanted to get this one done. We didn't want to skip a week on this Salesforce podcast because it's paramount to what we're doing. It's paramount to the business you're building, and we know, there's a ton of customers out there that need Salesforce help. That the way we do it's going to be different, and we're going to be able to help them.
Yeah. Yeah, these are good. These are fun. I mean, we're all learning on some of the new stuff as we go, and this is just going to continue. We're going to keep going through these things, and hopefully, we might have solved or answered a couple questions to the some people listening to this. That would be great, right? Because that's what we're trying to do is like the title, simplify some of this stuff.
Sure. All right, Derek. I know you don't have a great answer to this one. When is your next Salesforce specific, what we call Blueprint Lunch user peer discussion event coming up? I know you got a bunch that are going to come up as you start to have these on the calendar. I want to highlight them.
Yeah, so they're all going to kick off next year, and we're targeting areas like Charlotte, North Carolina, Greensboro, North Carolina, Raleigh, New York, Florida, just to name a few. But they're getting scheduled right now, and I'm looking forward to getting those things on the calendar and booked, and start getting some folks signed up for them.
Yeah, I'm excited about it. It will essentially be our version of a XenTegra Salesforce specific user group thing, and that's not to diminish the Salesforce user group. We're going to participate in those and encourage people to go to those, but we're going to do more, and we're going to do them focused around topics and around people talking about those topics openly with each other. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, and I mean, real quick on that, I mean, the cool part of this is that what I enjoyed the most at Dreamforce is the peer-to-peer discussions, right? Talking with other people that are there and learning about what they're doing and how they're solving, and that's what's going to happen at these events. Let's get folks in a room together. Let's start talking through how somebody's solving one issue. What's use case are you using this for? And let's continue that, that community that you saw and everybody that goes to Dreamforce sees. Let's continue that throughout the year at different events.
Yeah, the products, these platforms are limitless, like literally limitless, but the conversations that need to happen in parallel are also limitless.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, sir. Have a good weekend, and we'll do it again next week.
Sounds good.